In case you thought it would never come, we are finally here. We are finally at the conclusion of the 2024 legislative session for California. We've had a lot of great wins this year. We're going to round those out, but we've also got a couple bills on the table. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today. That is right, we are finally in the last week of the 2024 legislative session. If it's felt like a marathon to you, that's because that is exactly what it has been. California has one of the longest legislative sessions in the country. Here to talk us through it, though, is the legislative director of CRPA. He is also the host of Firing Line Radio. You can find him on AM 590 The Answer at 1 p.m. every Saturday. That is Rick Travis. Rick, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And guys, before we get into this today, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos. Hit that little notification bell so that as we come out with these videos, they go directly to you with the notifications that YouTube may provide. And also, there is an opportunity coming up for you if you are in the San Diego area or have the means to get there. The Gun Rights Policy Conference that Second Amendment Foundation is putting on is happening September 27th through 29th. We as a YouTube channel try to bring you guys this information on litigation and legislation as the stuff happens, but this would be an opportunity with a lot of very influential people in the litigative 2A space being there to hear what the strategy is for lawsuits, not just in California, but the rest of the nation as well. So, Jacob, if we can, let's go ahead and put the link in the description for that. If you guys want to go check it out, there's going to be a lot of great information there. Chuck Michelle, who is CRPA's president, will also be speaking there at that conference, so be sure to check that out. So, Rick, I guess let's go ahead and start from the beginning. For those people, we are in the last week of the legislative session. If I'm not correct, please correct me. But the 31st of August is the last day of the legislative session this year. For those who haven't watched that 1980s cartoon on the process of a bill, where exactly do we find ourselves? Can you go ahead and lay this out for us, just what the process for legislation is?
Yeah, all the bills have cleared all their committees. Bills have to start off in a house of origin. That'd be the Assembly or the Senate. They will move through those respective houses. They have to go through, depending on the type of a bill, a series of committees. In our space, that's always going to be at least public safety and at least appropriations. Where do we have the money for this? And then there's other committees that the bill goes through. If it's a bill that we're opposing, we obviously testify, letters of opposition, et cetera, in each of those committees. During that process, the bill may or may not be amended, may not be able to get to the other house because it fails the deadline, which are all part of the work that we do. And then it eventually moves to the other house, and it goes through that same process, and then it moves to what they call the reading section, which is where we've been. Once appropriations deadline, which was 2 weeks ago, was passed, which was funding, and those bills that made it through that process go. I will make a note that normally there's about 200, 250 bills that fail that deadline annually. This year, we were just shy of 500 bills. So that's almost like a doubling, and that's because of how bad the budget is in California. And those weren't all, just so everybody knows, those weren't 500 anti-2A bills. There were some anti-10 to be exact in this round that got killed because of financial issues. And then that leads us to right now where these bills are being amended last week, which was the next to last week, obviously. Many bills were amended more than once. And so that's not an area that we have a lot of direct conflict. We fight within the background, going to offices of the members, working with them, talking with them, trying to stop votes from happening. And that leads us to this Saturday at midnight. If a bill is not able to get enough votes on the combined floors of both houses, then it doesn't go to the governor's office. If it does, then it will move to the governor's office, where either we support this bill or we want this bill to be vetoed. In our case, there'll be about 3 to 4 bills that we'll ask for veto requests on. And then it's going to be an interesting time to see what the governor does on those.
Well, before we look at what is still on the table, I thought it might be a good idea as we're approaching the end of the session here to kind of look back on this year. We saw over 10,000 emails throughout the year get sent to legislators in California from the Second Amendment community, letting them know that they are A, being watched, but B, to advocate against a lot of these gun control bills. But this was kind of a big year in the legislature. We saw some lines crossed that hadn't previously gotten crossed. Can you lay out for us some of these big bills that have been defeated leading up to today?
Yeah, a couple of things I think that we need to remember. It's very easy to show up at, like I like to say, at the back of a tailgate and whine and gripe and complain, and rightfully so. There's a lot of anti-Second Amendment animosity that comes from the legislature towards our community. So I'm not saying that derogatory to anybody listening to this. Having said that, though, two things I always say. One, that doesn't really move the ball. But this year, as you said, people that have been following this channel, people who are members and have been listening to the emails and requests, have become a part of a bigger team that has allowed us to put a lot of pressure on a legislature that, thanks to a lot of things that they've done wrong, such as the budget, has made more willingness, I guess it would be the most polite way to put it, for them to re-examine on some things. So one of the biggest things that we saw as a pivotal change was we saw people like Senator Portantino and Assemblyman Manshine and a couple of others who got together and they put together what's called a bill package. And that bill package was designed to set up, Kevin, very simply and very quickly, what we would call a mandatory confiscation scheme. And we came out hard and fast on that, really worked on it. You know, one of those bills was Assembly Bill 3067, which would have caused your insurance agent to basically, in effect, become a law enforcement officer for the legislature to determine how many firearms you had, where they were stored, how they were stored. And if you didn't tell them the truth, then your insurance may or may not pay. And there was all sorts of draconian crap in that bill. That bill was soundly not just gutted and amended, defeated, wiped out. Then you had Portantino that came out with Senate Bill 1160 that would have set up the confiscation, clearly was designed to do that. We came out hard and fast on that bill. He had bragged that it was in the bag. It was already ready to be signed by the governor. And Sam Prentice from Gun Owners of California and myself and a couple other people really stood shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, and went at it. And we defeated the bill twice. And that should cause everybody to go, wait, what? We defeated it in its original form, and he was forced to gut and amend all the stuff out. And then he tried to make it a CCW bill, but keep the same number, 1160. We defeated that too. So we didn't just kick him in the teeth once, we kicked him in the teeth twice. And then during that same time period, he was trying to run for Congress, and he was soundly defeated in a very big Democratic stronghold called his own district and couldn't pull it off. And we were able to defeat several people that tried to move up to the federal level, so that we didn't export California's inane Second Amendment legislators. Then it left us with Assembly Bill 1253, which was turning your firearm safety card, the FFC, into a gun license that you would have to possess. That got it amended to be nothing. It's literally a nothing bill now. What we call a technical change bill. It has one small change in that doesn't apply to anybody listening to this. And then we are left with two bills, which is Senate Bill 53, which is a mandatory storage bill. Remind everybody that, you know, not once, not twice, but three different Supreme Courts comprise three different ways. And the Heller, McDonald, and Bruin cases have all said, you can't do that, Senator Portantino. That's unconstitutional. It's not stopping him, but that bill's been amended. I have a feeling it's going to get amended once or twice more before the end of the week. But even in its grossly amended thing, it's completely unconstitutional, completely unacceptable, and will, without a doubt, be stopped with an injunction the moment it gets signed into law, which may cause the governor not to sign it. And then we have another one, 3064, which deals with what's considered a safety device, and that's everything from something on the firearm to the safes that you have that they're not on a list of approved safety devices. They don't count. That bill looks like it could squeak by, but again, there's a lot of resistance, and the governor may or may not sign it. We don't know.
So I guess just to wrap up a couple of these ideas, as far as bills that have been defeated, and like I said, these were some heinous bills that we saw. You're talking about licensing schemes. You're talking about schemes to deputize those who are not in law enforcement. You're talking about eliminating access for people to tools that they can use to defend themselves. A lot of these types of bills, akin to Nazi Germany, some other instances, what we basically see is a lot of socialist or communist regimes that end up in a lot of casualties. Starting off with legislation like this. So we rang those alarm bells early. The people showed up to tell their legislators just how they felt, and we were able to defeat a lot of those. And then it seems like you're kind of transitioning here. A couple of bills still on the table that we're going to have some sort of conclusion at the end of this week. I guess from there, what is the sentiment that you see in Sacramento, and more specifically with Governor Newsom, who's taking a beating right now in the media? I know that part of it is, criticism on California. Part of it also has to do probably with the national presidential campaign. But what is the temperature that you see up there? And if these bills get to the point where they need to be signed by the governor, do you see him doing so?
So this is what I mean. No one has the crystal ball, but I mean, here's some of the what I like to call K Street, which is one of the main streets right next to the Capitol, and it's called the K Street rumor mill. So predominant rumors are he may not sign some of these bills strictly because he got a good taste of what his campaign could look like in 4 years, because he does want to run for the presidency. He's never denied that. I think he was very upset, put off. I've seen some recent interviews, and we've heard this from some of his staff, that he was very put off with the process that put the vice president in that position, that there was not an open primary once President Biden stepped down, because Newsom had been very clear that he was willing to run. He just was never going to challenge President Biden. And so when Biden was removed, like he said recently in a podcast, that was the shortest, manipulation of the system ever, and basically was told what to say even in that podcast, according to him. So I think there's a little bit of that going on, that he realizes he's going to have to carry some central states, and if he comes off too anti-Second Amendment, that's never going to happen. I think that's a reaffirmation of what he found out when he tried to run a constitutional amendment nationwide. So I think the governor is looking at that. I think the governor is also looking at, he's got a large deficit. So signing something into law that's going to get sued, that's going to cost millions of dollars. There are a lot of bills that for less than what that lawsuit would cost didn't make it through to the edge, because they knew the governor would never sign it, because he's not trying to take on more debt. So that may turn out to be in our favor. I would never take that as like, oh, he had a change of heart. It would be strictly for financial reasons, but also that gives us time to continue to build up in this election process that we're going into right now. There's literally dozen and a half seats that are less than 2,500 votes from us securing. So it's just us getting out the vote, and I'm very grateful to what you and your team do to do that, Kevin.
So I mean, there's at least a chance that a Second Amendment bill that would otherwise automatically be signed by Governor Newsom might not be signed. What are your final thoughts, and what's your outlook for this week? Is it going to be chaos in Sacramento, or is the schedule pretty aligned? What does this week look like for you?
No, it is chaotic. It's chaotic for several reasons. One, this is the first time you have two new leaders, one in the Senate and one in the Assembly, running the final week. And the final week's always stressful. Having worked up in the Capitol, it's a stressful week. You've got close to 30, 35 members of the legislature that aren't returning. So you already have staff. I mean, I always tell people, legislators come and go, staff's forever. And to a degree, that's very true. So you have staff jumping ship this week to go work for another office, trying to secure their future. So there's a lot of political dealing, and I would even say some backstabbing going on in that process. So that leads to the chaos. You have the deadlines. You have people that normally are out of the Capitol by Thursday afternoon that are going to be working all day Friday, all day Saturday. They're like any other group of people when you're kind of set in your ways, Kevin, and you get told, oh, this is what the next few days. And some of those people have the attitude of, well, I'm not coming back. My job is done on Saturday. So they're already out, if that makes any sense. So all that leads to the chaos, all that leads to opportunities. And our job is to try not to squander any of those and to make the best on all of them.
Well, we're certainly going to be following along, looking forward to potentially getting you back on at the end of the week to see how all of this shapes out. But I know it's going to be a busy one for you, so I want to thank you for taking the time and be here with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, if you like videos like this, you want to see more, and you want to stay updated, please, one more time, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to these videos. Hit that little notification bell so that you are informed as the videos come out. We're going to definitely follow along with this one and hopefully get some good results. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.